Mostadaf drops in. That's it, all 6 lined up. They're off for a race in a million. The Group 1 Prince of Wales's Stakes, a mile and a quarter ahead of them. Baybridge just perhaps a little squeezed out. Drops in at the rear of the field in the cherry jacket as Luxembourg from stall 1 races handily and very briefly races a little off the inside running rail. He's accompanied through the first quarter mile by Classic Causeway, with Adayar in the royal blue dropping in on the inner of My Prospero, the yellow silks, and Mostadaf, the striped cap, racing alongside Baybridge, and they're hunting in pairs as they race out of Swindley Bottom and complete the first 3 furlongs. And it's Luxembourg and Ryan Moore leading up by a half length to Classic Causeway in the hands of Julian Leparoux. Just over a length away then to Adayar, Will Buick in the royal blue sitting on the tails of the leading pair. My Prospero, Tom Marquand just 4th. Baybridge against the running rail in the hands of Richard Kingscote, and a half length further back to Mostadaf and Jim Crowley. Heading towards halfway then in the Prince of Wales's Stakes, and Luxembourg continues to dictate. He's got the field well stacked up. Classic Causeway remains a very close second, being followed through by My Prospero. Adayar covered up against the running rail, and then Baybridge in a cherry jacket, and Mostadaf is just last, and they leave the half mile behind them and now begin the swing back towards home in this Group 1 feature. Luxembourg and Ryan Moore still in front, still have the attentions of Classic Causeway. Adayar poised in behind, needs a bit of daylight, being kept in by My Prospero. Mostadaf out on the right, being to make headway. Baybridge trying to thread his way through from the rear. On down the straight towards the final quarter of a mile. Luxembourg up against the running rail, trying to fend a ball off. Here's Mostadaf moving through to challenge. Adayar is back in third, and Mostadaf has come sweeping through to take over and begins to power clear. Mostadaf inside the furlong, opens up by 3-4 lengths to Luxembourg and Adayar. They've got 100 yards to cover, and it's Mostadaf and Jim Crowley in front and running on strongly. Mostadaf wins the Prince of Wales's Stakes. Luxembourg second, Adayar third, and My Prospero back in 4th ahead of Baybridge.
Mostadaf puts in a world-class performance to win the Prince of Wales's Stakes. Well, Freddie may not have had his mind on the job in the paddock, certainly did in the race.
He certainly had, yeah, and it looked an easy ride for Jim as well. He took his time out the back, rode him. They didn't go hard early doors, Alex. As a matter of fact, they went 13s the whole way around there. So Ryan Moore very much rode the race to his liking whatsoever. He got an uncontested lead. The American horse, I'm not sure what the exact plan was there, but I just don't understand why they didn't make more use of him here. And look at this, Mostadaf quickening up the best out of the whole bunch here. Got to say, on his day, he's very smart.
And what was impressive as well, James, he's made up a lot of ground coming round that bend, but he was hard on the bridle at that point.
Yeah, that's right. Ryan Moore, dictated terms has really suited him to put himself in pole position, and part of the plan was to compromise those who were held up. In theory, it should have been hard for Mostadaf to win that race on what he's achieved so far, on the way the race went, and for him not just to win it but to break it apart like that is something spectacular. And one quick thing is Equinox, that is the most amazing horse from Japan. He toyed with Mostadaf last time.
I was about to say that makes him look sensational. Let's go and hear from one of the joint trainers with Mick.
John and Rachel, congratulations.
Well, he chased the brilliant Japanese horse.
Yeah.
And he was the only one who tried to give him a race, and he paid the price. But he's a talented horse. We were going to go to the race at Sandown, the Brigadier Gerard, but we waited, and he just needed more time. But look, even he's surprised with his brilliance today.
But that was like special.
Yeah, very special. He knows how to quicken. The ground dried up, and he loved it.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Oh, it was incredible. We know this horse goes well fresh, Freddie. We hadn't seen him since that 4th behind Equinox in the Shima Classic. He's a big money spinner for them already, having won that race in Saudi, but this is the prestige that I've been looking for.
You got to say, in Saudi, he looked very, very good, and the smile on Jim Crowley's face that day was quite big. He disappointed a little bit in Maidan, I think, for connections, but looking at that form, like James said, Equinox, this is obviously the best horse in the world, so he wasn't beaten that far by him. And look, today's the icing on the cake for everyone. one. Sheikha Hissa Hamdan Al Maktoum was here yesterday. I'm hoping she's here again today because her father left a tremendous legacy.
He really did, really did. Much missed, of course, Sheikh Hamdan Al Maktoum, but just put a little bit of context on this performance, Jamie.
Well, we're dealing in 4 horses who are rated in the 120s, bona fide, authentic Group 1 horses. And they're bordering on the elite Group 1s. This is an elite Group 1. And for Mostadaf to do that to those collectively, it's pretty astounding. But, Kevin, we lost Galileo, and how fitting, and I suppose how welcoming and reassuring that the Galileo genes to some extent live on via Frankel, because now Frankel's monopoly on the breeding world is becoming quite stark.
Well, this is it, and you'd think, you know, after Galileo there could never be another one quite like that, but this fella's going to make a fair go of it, isn't he? Like, the rate at which he's producing top-class horses is something else. And, like, just to evaluate this race briefly, like, look, if you it's a natural human instinct, Alex, that when we see things that we're not expecting, we don't want to believe them. But if we use our imagination for a minute and take Mostadaf out of this picture altogether, like, the rest makes perfect sense, really. Like, Luxembourg has, you know, made the running. He's fought off Adiyar, Bay Bridge 2 lengths or so, My Prospero 2 lengths or so back. Like, if you just looked at that picture, you'd say, that makes sense. But that's not the picture. Mostadaf is 4 or 5 lengths in front, you know, and you're just trying to look at his form and try to find an angle as to where this came from. He was, you know, he's great at 121. It's not from out of the blue, but this was well in excess of 121. You look at his form, maybe 10 furlongs is his very best trip. He's done plenty of racing over 1.5 miles. That really good performance out in Saudi was over 10 furlongs. He beat Dubai Honor a little bit earlier than that, around a sharp 1.5 miles. You know, it's a slightly tricky one to work out, but on what basis can we doubt it? You know, I thought that was a good, honest race. He came from further back than one would have thought would have been favoured, given the fractions. So I think we have to stand up and give this horse his credit.
And the smile may have been wide on Jim Crowley's face after Saudi with the size of the cheque. This is certainly a very valuable race as well. But there is Sheikha Hissa. It's wonderful to see her here, to see her horses, and absolutely fully immersed in the job. She adores her horses, and it's great that she's here to support and follow in her father's footsteps.
Yeah, precisely, Alex. We talked about legacy with Galileo. Well, the legacy is the same with Sheikh Hamdan. And to have a horse like Baid come along last year was quite frankly ridiculous and astounding for what he did. And suddenly, Mostadaf comes and fills those huge boots. Now, we have seen this occasionally in the Prince of Wales, a spectacular winning distance that you just thought, has it been backed up? He could be a Lord North who did something similar one year in this. But how about the 30, 40, even 50% chance that we are now talking about the dominant force in middle distance European racing? There is a chance that Mostadaf is now just the one.
Well, he certainly was the one today. That quick ground, or the quickening ground, in his favour. You wouldn't mind being a fly on the wall in that conversation, would you? But it's an incredible performance by a horse who's now 5. And he was showing the fact that he's maybe thinking about his next career in the paddock beforehand, but he certainly deserves his place at that table now, given a performance like that. But very impressive, Fred, and he's a gorgeous-looking horse as well.
He's a gorgeous-looking horse with a great pedigree as well, and you know, the world is his oyster from now on. So he's achieved so much in relatively short term. 5-year-old at his peak now.
Yeah, he is, and of course Shadwell stand their own stallions, so I'm sure they'll be looking forward to that when the time comes. But well done to you if you were with this Mostadaf, who returned at 10-1 ahead of Luxembourg, the 2-1 favourite, some way back in second. But this horse comes home in glorious isolation. We'll get reaction for you shortly, but in the shorter term, in 30 seconds in fact, we'll be back.